wish to thank our resource persons today as we discuss the proposed Rightsizing the National Government Act. During his inaugural speech, the President himself expressed concern over the size of the bureaucracy. From 176 departments in year 2000, there are now 186 departments in the national government. The national government employs about 1.3 million workers, or about 1.3% of our population. The increase in the number of government agencies, without doubt, has a significant impact on our budget. For 2017, 29.57% of our budget of 3.35 trillion, or 990.5 billion pesos, is allocated for personnel services, PS. So that's almost 1/3, an increase from 2016's 27.05%, or 812 billion, and 2015's 28.62%, or 746 billion. Aside from these budgetary implications, a big bureaucracy has a negative impact on government performance and efficiency. The overlapping jurisdictions and redundant functions of several agencies result in confusing regulatory rules, red tape, and inefficient delivery of public goods and services, all to the detriment of the Filipino people. To continue funding these redundant and outdated agencies is certainly a waste of our limited resources. It is time we address the inefficiencies brought about by a bloated bureaucracy by rationalizing the organizational structure and functions of national government agencies. This right-sizing bill seeks to address these concerns and aims to improve government efficiency through a leaner, cleaner, and more competent bureaucracy. On that note, I wish to engage our resource persons in a discussion on the proposed measure. We are honored to have my mentor and one of the most brilliant cabinet members, Secretary Ben Jokno, to brief us on the right-sizing bill, which is actually a pet bill of the DBM, if I may say. Also, just to put on record that the staff, employees of the bureaucracy need not fear, because it will be voluntary on their part, and there will be incentives if ever they avail of the retirement packages, and no one will be forced to be laid off. That's my understanding. Yes. So we will listen to the presentation of DBM Secretary Jokno. We would also like to welcome Dr. Rosario Manasan of the PIDS, and Attorney Remus Reyes, Ms. Imelda de la Cruz, and Assistant Secretary Mirna Chua. Yes. And Attorney Ariel Ronquillo of the Civil Service Commission. Yes. Who is the head of Civil Service now?
Chairperson Alice Bala.
Okay. Not Duque, not Chair Duque anymore. Alice Bala is from the SWD.
Yes,
I see. Okay, fine. Thank you. We will hear first Secretary Jokno, and then Civil Service will lay your position if you're in favor or not, as well as the PIDS, and the DAP, and the PGEA, but also, what is PGEA?
Philippine Government Employees Association.
Ah, yes, okay. And then we will hear your positions as well, and kindly submit soft and hard copies of your position paper. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman and colleagues in government. Today we are pleased to present the proposed bill entitled an Act Rightsizing the National Government to improve public service delivery, which is in line with the directive of the President to streamline the operations of the different departments and agencies. The passage of a law on the National Government Rightsizing Program will enable the government to implement radical and transformational reforms in order to streamline the operations of government agencies, as well as right-size their organizational structure and manpower complement. In his fiscal year 2017 budget message, the President noted that the national government has 186 departments, agencies, and other offices from just 176 in 2000. The government workforce currently stands at 1.5 million positions compared to 1.1 million in 2000. Although the expansion of the bureaucracy is a response to the growing demand of public services, the President noted that there is still fat in government that we must trim. In the same budget message, the President stated that he would ask authority from Congress to, number one, conduct a comprehensive review of the functions and organizational structures of departments and agencies. Number two, merge or abolish agencies. And three, implement other measures to improve the efficiency of operations and enhance the delivery of services. Now, why should we right-size the government? Right-sizing the government would mean addressing the dysfunctions such as the following. Number one, unnecessary proliferation of agencies with redundant, duplicating, or overlapping mandates and functions. Number two, existence of agencies that have outlived their purpose, for example, the PCGG. Number three, functions of certain agencies that could be better undertaken by the private sector. The right-sizing program aims to attain the following: effectiveness, efficiency, responsiveness, and progressiveness. Now, what is the program about? What is right-sizing program about? May we highlight that the program is a function-based effort, which means that it aims to refocus government efforts to the performance of its core functions and likewise to improve efficiency and effectiveness in the delivery of services. What the program is not is that it's not about outright downsizing. There shall be no forced retirement or separation of affected regular employees. The program is also not an early retirement scheme, which means only those personnel whose functions or their offices have been declared redundant shall be given the option to avail of the program incentives if they choose not to be placed in other agencies. Now, the national government right-sizing program shall be guided by the appropriate role of government and the scope, level, and prioritization of government functions in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution and other laws, political and socio-economic objectives of the government, and available resources. It will also be based on the agency's core mandates and functions. Moreover, the program aims to achieve the following: A. Rationalize rules and operations to reduce regulatory burden on citizens, business, and stakeholders. B. Strengthen government institutions by determining the organizational structure and staffing mix based on the necessary skills and competencies to carry out the agency's mandates and functions. And C. Delineate responsibilities between the national government and local governments in the production and delivery of goods and services. Now, all departments and agencies of the national government will be covered except the following: teaching and teaching-related positions, medical and allied medical positions, military and uniformed personnel, and positions in GOCCs, GFIs covered by GCG. Congress, the judiciary, the constitutional offices, local government units, and autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao are also not included, although they have the option to adopt the right-sizing program. Now, the President's authority to right-size the national government, specifically, we would like to request or ask Congress for the power to, number one, create, establish, or regularize offices. For example, creation of a Department of Housing and Urban Development. Number two, transfer offices, functions, programs, and projects from one agency to another. For example, transfer of the function of the Office of Transportation Cooperatives under the Department of Transportation as regards promulgating and implementing rules and regulations for transportation cooperatives in the Cooperative Development Authority. Number three, group, integrate, merge, consolidate, split, abolish, or deactivate national government agencies. The President shall likewise have authority to formulate and provide safety nets, including their implementation strategies for employees who may be affected by government right-sizing efforts. Now, a committee of right-sizing the national government shall be created to assist the President in the implementation of the program. The committee shall be composed of the Executive Secretary as chairman, Secretary of DBM as co-chair, and the Director General of NEDA, Chairperson of Civil Service, and the head of the PMS as members. The committee shall have the following powers and functions. A, formulate and issue the IRR of the Act. B, organize subcommittee technical working groups. The technical working groups shall be composed of experts on the public sector, sectoral government operations, organizational development, change management, and human resource management. Each TWG, which could be about 3, will either be headed by DBM, NEDA, or PMS. C, develop a framework, policies, strategies, and mechanisms to be adopted in the implementation of the government's rightsizing program. D, conduct studies on the functions, programs, projects, operations, structure, and manpower complement of different agencies. Next, come up with the recommended functional and organizational shifts or reforms for agencies concerned. Next, develop and prepare the right-sized organizational structure of departments and agencies and the corresponding executive issuances for approval by the President. Next is the monitoring and implementation of various departments, agencies of their respective approved right-sizing plans and report to the President any issue that may be addressed. And finally, the Commission shall conduct an independent impact assessment on the program after its completion. Now, the timeline for program implementation are shown in the chart. The Act shall be effective 15 days after its publication. The Committee on Rightsizing, the national government, shall be organized within 15 days from the effectivity of the Act, and so forth and so on. But finally, the President shall submit a report to Congress on the result of the program after the completion of its implementation. From the effectivity of the Act up to the availability of benefits for affected personnel, we are looking at about 1.5 to 2-year period of implementation. Within 250 days from the effectivity of the IRR of the Rightsizing Act, the Committee on Rightsizing, the national government, shall submit to the Office of the President the right-sized organizational structure of agencies concerned and the corresponding executive issuances for the purpose. Thereafter, or within 60 days after the President's approval of the executive issuances for the purpose, department secretaries, agency heads concerned shall prepare and submit to DBM the detailed organizational structure and staffing pattern of their respective departments and agencies. After which, DBM will evaluate said submitted detailed organizational and staffing pattern of departments and agencies concerned. Further, the program's retirement benefits and separation incentives shall be availed of within 60 days upon approval by the DBM of the department's detailed right-sized organizational structure and staffing pattern. With the abolition, merger, and regularization of certain agencies, it is inevitable that some positions will be abolished. Now, the affected personnel, whether hired on a permanent, temporary, casual, or contractual basis, and with appointments attested by the Civil Service Commission, shall be entitled to any of the retirement programs. It could be retirement gratuity under RA 1616, or retirement benefit under RA 660, or retirement benefits under RA 8291. In addition, they shall be entitled to separation incentives under the program, refund of the pag-ibig contributions, and commutation of unused vacation leave and sick leave benefits. So the separation incentives, this is on top of the retirement benefits, is given here. Less than 11 years, but more than 5 years. You get, in addition, a separation benefit of 1/2 of your actual monthly basic salary. From 21 years to less than 21 to 11 years, 3/4 of actual monthly basic salary. Less than 31 to 21, actual monthly basic salary, and 31 years and above, 1 1/4 of actual monthly basic salary. A minimum of 5 years of government service is required to avail of the program separation incentives. So I can give you a sample computation of separation incentives. For example, for an administrative assistant 3 position, SG09, the monthly salary is
May I
17,473.
just interrupt to help me defend this measure? Who's an expert in the bureaucracy? We welcome Senate President Pro Tempore Frank Drilon. You may proceed, Sec Chok, no?
Right. For a SG09 with a basic salary of 17,473, he will. This is on top of the pension, the benefits, retirement benefits. For example, an administrative assistant 3, whose monthly basic salary is 17,473, will have separation incentives of 87,365 if he or she has been in government service for 10 years, based on the incentive factor of 50% of his or her monthly basic salary. For 15 years, he shall receive 196,571, and so on and so forth, based on the applicable incentive factor. For administrative 4 position, salary grade 15, he will get, if he has been in service for 10 years, 145,505. If more than 31 years, the subject retiree will have separation incentives, and again, this is on top of the pension benefits, is up about 1,127,664. A division chief, as salary grade 24, will get, if he's in service for 10 years, 366,495, but if he's in service for more than 31 years, 2.8 million, 40,336. So there are some prohibitions on rehiring of retired or separated personnel. Retirees are prohibited from being appointed as or hired as casual contractuals in any agency of the government, including GOCCs, for a period of 5 years, except as teaching staff in a state university or college. The number of agency personnel to avail of program incentives shall not exceed the number of positions declared by agency for abolition. Affected personnel, if with permanent appointment, who will not opt to retire, will be placed in civil service manpower pool, and the civil service will retool them and deploy to agencies which need their qualifications, skills, and competencies. Now, the amount necessary for initial implementation will be sourced from G, the General Appropriations Act, and of course the subsequent amount needed shall be included in the succeeding annual GAAs. So let me give you an estimated funding requirement for separation incentives and terminal benefits for a senior staff, SG18. So the number, okay, is SG18 years in service, it's 23, right? On average, years in service 23. Number of tranches, which is this is the third tranche of the SSL 4, right? And so he will get a total benefit of 1.4 million, 1.426 million. And assuming that the number of affected personnel will be 5%, then we would need something like 18.2 billion. If the number of personnel affected is 10%, we need 36.4 billion. And if the number of affected personnel is 15%, we would need 54.6 billion. Now, the estimated annual personal services savings to be generated under the program, because we can save money by, of course, abolishing some positions, will be authorized number of general civil servants will be 8 billion. Right. If 5% will avail, we save 8 billion. if 10%, 16.1 billion, and 15%, 24.3 billion. So that we estimate that the funds to be spent for retirees could be recouped by the government in about 2 years and 3 months. Okay. So the 8 billion, assuming we save 5%, right? Assuming 5% will be separated and we can save 8 billion, that could translate into a construction of 344 kilometers of roads, construction of 6,473 classrooms, acquisition of 10,789 classroom chairs, or the construction of 8,553 barangay health stations. Now, the draft rightsizing bill has been presented to and approved by the President last August 22, 2016. So this has been approved in a cabinet meeting. Said bill was endorsed by DBM to the Senate President, the House Speaker, and 20 legislators on September 8, 2016, who were requested to sponsor the same. Now, the salient features of the bill was likewise presented to the chairperson and members of the House Committee on Government Reorganization during its initial organizational meeting last September 14, 2016. And what's this? Representative Lord Alan J. Velasco of the Lone District of Marinduque last September 20, 2016. So as of January 31, 2017, 2 Senate bills and 4 House bills have already been filed for the purpose. Senate Bill 1162 filed on September 19, 2016 by Senator Legarda, and Senate Bill 1167 filed by Senator Vicente Soto. House Bills 3781, 3838, 3871, and 3913 were filed by the representatives concerned have been referred to the House Committee on Government Reorganization. In closing, we seek the support of the Senate in the passage of this bill, which presents a rare opportunity to streamline the government and enable agencies to improve the delivery of goods and services to the public. Thank you and good afternoon.
Secretary Jokno. We recognize Attorney Monera of the GSIS. Are there those we have not, may we have your name please? Pakilagay ng pangalan please lahat.
Attorney Kai Redimson from the Office of the President, Odesla, Office of the Deputy Executive Secretary for Legal Affairs.
Who is this person? Who is a Deputy Executive Secretary?
Attorney Ryan Acosta.
Okay. He was the one invited and you're representing him?
Yes.
Yes. Why could he not attend?
He is in a meeting right now together with the ASEC of our office. So I was sent as a representative considering that this is a legislative measure and I am Attorney 6 of the Legislative Office under Odesla, ma'am.
Is it Odessa under the Office of Executive Secretary or PMS?
It's under ES.
ES.
OES, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. May we hear from the Civil Service Commission? What is your... I've already recognized Senator Drilon. Would you want to make a statement or just listen first? Yes. Yes. Maybe we listen first to the Civil Service Commission and then we would like to hear from the PIDS, their views, as well as the PEGEA, the government employees. Civil Service, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Senator Drilon. The Civil Service Commission has always been supportive of any move to right-size the bureaucracy. However, we have noted that the bill is very much similar in one way or another to Executive Order number 366, which was signed in 2004 by then President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. EO 366, Your Honor. That is an EO which directed a strategic review of the operations and organizations of the executive branch and providing options and incentives for government employees who may be affected by the rationalization of the functions and agencies of the executive branch. And based on records, Your Honors, the government has barely finished the full implementation of EO 366. Right-sizing is intended as a long-term move to get the organization set up with the right level of talent, in each location, department, or position. It implies restructuring or adjusting an organization to an appropriate size to improve effectiveness without necessarily terminating or downsizing. In view of the fact that the government has just finished the full implementation of VO 366, we suggest that Section 5, the Section 5 of the proposed bill be refined or enhanced as follows. In other words, Your Honors, we're proposing a little modification of the provision, that instead of outrightly doing the undertaking the abolition of offices, we propose to direct the review of the functions, systems, and procedures, organizational structures, and staffing pattern of government agencies to determine whether these are still necessary, already redundant, or duplicating or overlapping with other departments and agencies, and B, the appropriate manpower complement for their programs, activities, and projects. And based on the results of the review, undertake the following organizational actions. Number 1, create or establish offices and or positions. Regularize offices and or positions within a department or agency which have been existing for more than 5 years. Group, integrate, merge, or consolidate national government agencies with duplicating or overlapping functions. Abolish or deactivate national government agencies whose functions are redundant, obsolete, or not necessary anymore. And to transfer offices, functions, programs, and projects, and or the corresponding appropriations, equipment, properties, records, personnel, and transactions to departments or agencies which can effectively handle the functions, programs, projects, and resources. And finally, Your Honors, we notice that in the proposed bill, there is a provision that will transfer to the Civil Service Commission some personnel who may be affected by the right of retooling. We move that the same be clarified also as to the salaries that these people will be getting while they are moved to CSE. So who will shoulder their salaries? And how about the fund for retooling? Apparently, the Commission, at the time that we seek the budget from Congress, could not really envision how many will be transferred to us for this purpose. Those are our comments, Your Honor.
Thank you. We take note of that. May we hear from the PIDS, please?
Good afternoon, Your Honors, and to everyone. The PGA understands the need to promote efficiency and cost in the delivery of public service through proper management of government workforce. A good number of fellow workers in the government and in owned and controlled corporations or GSIS have already been subjected to rationalization. PGA would like to have the lessons gathered from the experiences considered in the subject bills. For one, there should be an objective assessment of the entities that may be deactivated, integrated, merged, or consolidated. The surviving entity should be decided on its merit and not because of political patronage. A comparative assessment of the office performance should be given high consideration. The officers and employees of the entity that will be adversely affected should, as much as possible, be retained in the surviving entity or be given preference in the staffing of absorbing company. It is well appreciated that consultations will be made with accredited public sector unions relative to the implementation of the national government rightsizing program. This will help ensure the protection of the rights and welfare of the affected employees. The concerns of the said employees will likewise be voiced out through their union. In the event that there is no accredited public sector union in the office, it is humbly suggested that the employees be allowed to nominate or elect the representative in the consultations that will be made. As for the retirement benefits and separation incentives, it would be ensured that the amount due to the affected workers should be timely released and the procedure should be streamlined. It is proposed also that Section 13, providing for the prohibition on rehiring of personnel retired, separated from the service, be deleted or removed. It is said personnel passes the merit and fitness requirements for a certain position should be allowed to continue serving the government. Consideration should be given to those personnel, especially if they are already in their senior years. They have dedicated most of their productive years serving the public. Resorting to work for the private sector may prove to be difficult because of the strong competition and their advanced age. The knowledge and experience gathered from years of service in the government will be an advantage for the government. Lastly, it is humbly just suggested that employees' representative be included in the technical working group that will formulate the necessary IRR. The workers, after all, would be the most affected by the proposed bill, thus must be represented. Your Honors, this is the stand of the Philippine Government Employees Association. And our position paper, we will be furnishing your office.
Thank you, Ms. Cruz. Dr. Manasan, may we hear from the PIDS, please?
One cannot argue against the objectives of the rightsizing bill. And I think whatever concerns we had have been answered by the presentation. Just some minor points. I think I want to emphasize that rightsizing, as the Civil Service Commission has pointed out, that rightsizing is not necessarily downsizing. So that's one. Although if you read the bill, there appears to be a lot of emphasis on what do you do, but that's in case somebody gets separated from the service because of the rightsizing bill, but that's just fine because of the need to provide safety nets. If I may, I think, may I suggest one additional organizational action that perhaps should be included under Section 5, which is really that part where we encourage the agencies to reorganize their structure so that their organizational structures are more aligned to the major programs that they implement. So that when DBM talks about program budgeting, the organizational structure is actually aligned to that, and it will make it easier to find out which units are accountable for what types of, for the objectives or the goals that the agency has set itself. Let me just end
Can you
there.
give an example which agency needs to restructure itself to be for DBM to be able to assess their needs and the programs?
For instance, some agencies are organized along functional lines rather than the programs. According to the PREXI, the program budgeting thing of DBM, I forgot what it stands for. What's that, Mirna? Please help me on what PREXI stands for. program expenditure classification, yes. Agencies are encouraged to identify the major programs that they are supposed to deliver, and then to identify also the performance indicators relative to those programs. And the programs are not necessarily defined in terms of functions, as in collect, for instance, BIR, collect taxes, assess taxes, but more on what their policy objectives are. So it's more goal-oriented rather than functional-oriented. And I think if we are able to include that organizational action in the bill, then this will be better aligned with the reform initiatives also of the Department of Budget and Management.
Important. May I also add, apart from aligning it to the objectives and not just the function, because there's really something wrong. All these decades, there's a failure of governance, clearly. I mean, it's probably an exaggeration, but I see it every year. I've been sitting here since 1998, and when agencies don't talk to each other, and agencies don't do convergence work, and there's duplicating functions of agencies. Everybody has a livelihood component, which is good, but why do people still not have livelihood? So it's really irritating, to say the least, when we give so much budget to the executive and the people are not alleviated from poverty. So you're correct in that it should be not just functional, but according to the objective. Maybe you, PIDS, can help us to provide a provision where the agencies, like-minded agencies, must really talk to each other. This should not be legislated, actually. Kusa yan eh, proactive. But we see that agencies do not talk, and they see each other during hearings, during budget hearings, or hearings of whichever committee, and they have a tendency to just point the finger on each other to the detriment of their function and the objective, and not doing service to the Filipino people. That's a common occurrence in the Senate, and I've seen it for almost 20 years. So may I request, PIDS, Dr. Manasal, I've heard your name many, many times, you're the expert here. I'm sure you can find or insert a provision that would compel agencies with similar functions to have clusters, to converge, to consult each other, to share database. That's another instance or another issue, maybe not problem, that I see, that people do not share research studies, the product of foreign trips. The executive does not share it with the legislative, and we're the policy makers. People keep on traveling around the country and traveling abroad. There's nothing wrong with traveling, but please share the outputs of all these. So I'm sure you know what I mean, and I would request that to be an amendment later on. In the meantime, I would like to request Senator Drilon, whose vast experience in government as Justice Secretary, Executive Secretary, Senate President, and etc., as Dole Secretary, can really help us see this through. So I would like to hear your comments as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, for the record, or off the record, I haven't read the bill because you requested me to attend and provide you quorum. That's why I'm here. But anyway, yes, I have had exposure to issues like this since I joined government. And the right-sizing, reorganization concept has been there since namulat ako sa sa aking sa pamahalaan. You know, if you look back, and I could only look back for a limited period, you recall the first one was the Fabella Commission. The Fabella Commission was for right-sizing, reorganizing the bureaucracy. I don't know, Secretary Jokno, if there was one before the Fabella Commission, but the Fabella Commission was the earliest that I know.
Sorry, may I just ask you, the Fabella Commission was created by the Senate?
The Fabella Commission, if I recall correctly, was created by law. Before martial law. Before martial, or I can't remember anymore. But basta. I do not know if it's the first, but it was a reorganization commission. Can you confirm that, Secretary
Yeah,
Jokno?
the first reorganization commission was 1954,
You see?
if I remember.
In 1954, baka hindi pa kami pinanganak noon ni Senator Lauren. But anyway,
Siguradong di
I
pa.
am putting that
Pero
in...
hindi yun yung Fabella.
No,
iba
no,
yun.
I am putting that in context because this is a concept which every administration embarks on and tries to do, recognizing the need to right-size our bureaucracy. But if it has succeeded in enlarging the bureaucracy every time. All right. And, you know, so I think I will ask a series of questions, which I would like the resource persons to submit responses to, because that will help us in coming up with a better legislation. And as I confess, I haven't read this. Number one, is it the contemplation of that we delegate the to reorganize the bureaucracy, to downsize the economy, the bureaucracy, to right-size the economy to the executive, or do you want the Congress to do it? My suggestion is, and again, let me just finish and then you can react later on. I would suggest that we delegate this to the executive. Madugo ito eh. Villafuerte Commission did that. All right. I think we were together with Ben Jokno in the cabinet of President Cory. The first, in 1986, there was a Villafuerte Commission. Right-sizing, and the head was Luis Villafuerte at that time. And if we have a bureaucracy today of this nature, part of that is the work of the Villafuerte Commission in 1986. Now, so the first issue is, do we delegate? If we delegate, then what are the standards that we must follow in order to make the delegation valid? Because many of these offices are created by law, and therefore it requires the action of the legislature. But it doesn't mean that we cannot delegate. We have done this, Madam Chair, in the case of the GOCC Governance Act. I crafted the law in such a way that the executive is given the power to abolish GOCCs, which are created by law, which are no longer delivering the mandate that they're supposed to be doing, or they are performing functions that can be performed better by the private sector, that they are duplicates of another agency. All of this, we set standards, and we told the executive branch, you do it, these are the standards. Even if the GOCC is created by law, you can abolish the charter as if it was Congress who was abolishing it. So, to my mind, Madam Chair, we should let the executive do the reorganization. They are in the best position to do it, but let us set standards so that it can be sustained constitutionally. And for another reason, pag binigay mo sa Kongreso, walang mangyayari. Puro lobby ng lobby. Nothing will happen to this bill. So that's the first suggestion that I have. Yes.
Actually, that's the essence of the bill.
Okay.
We're delegating it to them, but Sec Ben would be more competent to answer that. Can you
Yeah.
answer that first question, please?
The short answer is yes, that's the objective. And
But,
in fact, you can set the standards, and I might add, put a timeline. Kasi some reorganization, walang katapusan eh. So you put a timeline.
Okay, but yeah, I do not know whether the timeline should be set by law or we authorize the commission, the Reorganization Commission, whatever, or the DBA or Civil Service, to do the timeline. Anyway, I have no problems with having a timeline. It's just a question of, I agree, there should be a timeline, because we cannot forever locate in the executive the ability to reorganize, because it's basically the function of Congress. But I agree with Secretary Jokno, there must be a timeline, and we delegate to the executive branch the matter of coming up with a reorganization. I would repeat, the standards must be clear. Otherwise, it gets attacked in the Supreme Court. The reason why the Fabella Commission is known is that there were so many cases filed in the court questioning the authority of the Fabella Commission. When we delegated that authority to the executive branch in the GOCC Governance Act, all those corporations which are, even if created by law, can be abolished by the executive branch as long as they follow certain standards. We even included, and the Secretary of the Budget may be interested in this, we gave the authority to the executive branch to separate the functions of GOCCs which are both proprietary and regulatory. Example, PAGCOR. PAGCOR should be reorganized, and part of the reorganization, the PAGCOR should give up its regulatory or proprietary function, because it's simply anomalous that you regulate yourself, and that is what PAGCOR is doing. It is regulating itself by operating casinos. We should just, and part of the reorganization is the authority of the President to separate the proprietary and regulatory function of PAGCOR and just leave them to regulatory.
That was already passed into law.
That was already passed into law.
PAGCOR has not implemented it.
The past administration and the present administration
Refused to follow the law?
well, because they have to act on it. It's an authority granted to the executive. Whether the executive would want to exercise it is a matter that the executive will decide, because we delegated to the executive the policy issue. It's a policy issue that the executive will decide instead of Congress. Because we could certainly pass a law which says PAGCOR should no longer exercise proprietary function. We can pass that law, no question about it. But we delegated it to the executive branch. I do not know what is happening there, because, and we even have a process of vetting appointments to the board of directors of the GOCCs.
Inquiry, Your Honor, is PAGCOR under GCG?
Yes, yes. PAGCOR is under GCG.
I sit in the GCG, so...
Oh, yes, that's right.
Idea.
You, DOF, and...
three others. Okay.
No, three others, that's correct.
Correct.
3 appointive and 2 ex officio. And you should look at that. It is something that will reorganize the PAGCOR, remove sources of corruption. I'm being candid about it. You look at the intelligence funds of PAGCOR, and Ben should know this, how much it is. I'm not saying that they're stealing the money, but I'm saying the temptation to do something is there, because it is both regulatory and proprietary. And that is where the difficulty lies. So I think that's a reorganization that GCG might want to look into. So to have a background on for us, no? First, may I ask the resource persons to tell us how many reorganizations, retrenchment, EOs, or laws have been enacted, say, for the last 15 years?
I have, Your Honor, I have information here. The first one was 1946.
Okay. Maybe we not go back as far as 46.
1950.
Because Secretary Jokno, what I'm leading to is, where did we succeed and where did we fail?
Yes, Your Honor. Yung kay Fabella po, nagtaon na 18 years in existence. Diba? Parang...
We should limit it. That's our lesson there.
Well, dapat time-bound ho yan. We have to So yung kay existed during the entire martial law ng panahon yan. So you notice that also. Fabella, and then si Villafuerte, maiksi lang yung kanya, 3 months and 10 days lang.
So, in other words, what I'm saying is, my first request as background material is, what were the reorganization, retrenchment, EOs, laws that were passed for the last, say, 15 years? Okay? What were the features of those reorganization law, and what were the objectives, and why did we fail, or why did or what are the success stories. And from there, we can learn for purposes of this new legislation. So what were the objectives, etc. How did did we meet our goals, our objectives? If yes, what enabled us to meet our goals, and what prevented us from achieving the goals that we have? Because I would like to think, as I said, we can learn from this experience. You know, this is not new. Marami ng beses ito ginawa noon. And so now, Mr. Secretary, maybe you can tell us what is our objective. What is the right size of the bureaucracy, if we can determine that, just for purposes of discussion. What is the right size of the bureaucracy, and what is now the size of the bureaucracy? What is the right size of the bureaucracy, including LGUs, Naku, yung LGU, Mr. Secretary.
Noong 2004 po, there was an EO, that was meant. It was limited to its department lang. You cannot merge. Limited to its department. And I thought it's not successful as a result.
Okay. So again, we should have that kind of
and
input.
Then it added inflexibility to the system dahil pag na-reorganize ka na, you cannot employ, you cannot create additional positions. So puro naka-job order yung mga ano. So ang daming job orders ngayon. So I think this we want to cure that problem once and for all.
Right.
We put people in the right places. Yun actually yun ang objective ho ng right-sizing na ito.
And I would strongly suggest that Congress cannot be mandated to do that. Because the authority is with Congress, but I'll be the first to assert that while we have that mandate under the Constitution, we are the least qualified to exercise that mandate for realistic political reasons. Eh, talagang ganun eh. Okay. Now, we talk about right-sizing. How many what is our PS budget under the GAA, and how many items are those supposed to cover in the national government? The total PS?
Total PS in the 2017 budget is 997 billion.
997.
Out of a budget of 3.25 trillion. Okay.
3.25.
Yeah.
That's roughly 30%.
Roughly.
Roughly 30%.
Yes, yes.
How many are filled up?
How many are filled up?
Now, first, how many how many items are
Total number of positions,
Yes.
1.6 million.
I'm sorry?
1.6
1.6,
Mil-
997 for 1.6 million
number of positions.
positions. Okay.
Number of filled up positions is 1.4 million. So about 200,000 unfilled.
1.4 filled up. So you're talking about 200,000 unfilled positions. First, assuming that this is accurate, how long has these positions been vacant?
Years.
For many, many years. Because, Mr. Secretary, it is not rocket science to realize that right here and then, your 200,000, if you reduce your budget corresponding to the 200,000 positions, you immediately reduce your PS component of our budget. And right there and then, you already have right-sizing because you have reduced the PS budget. This is not even taking into account the matter of redundancy, of duplication, etc. Just the mere fact that a position has remained vacant for 5 years, what does that indicate to you? That the position is not needed now. So by doing that kind of an analysis, I'm telling you that you have already a savings of the corresponding savings of the 200,000 positions saved for, yeah.
Around how much? Just an estimate. Of course, these
But,
positions.
Your
It's
Honor,
difficult for them to
Your Honor,
answer.
we really do not fund unfilled positions.
But you're funding it.
No, it's we do not give the money to the
Yeah, but
agencies.
it's a budget. And
It's in the
yeah,
budget,
it's in the
but
budget,
it's
so you don't release.
yeah,
Okay.
it's a slack.
It's
there.
okay, yeah, okay. But anyway,
But you're right. If the position has not been filled for the last 5
5
years,
years.
it's probably
yeah.
not necessary. Okay.
Now, so, and the bill does not even take into account the bureaucracy below the national government. Huh?
We cannot touch the local governments.
You cannot touch that.
It's up to the mayors and the governments.
Right, but if you're talking about how many employees, so firstly, how many employees do we have in the national government?
1.4 actual
I'm sorry,
position.
1.6.
Filled position, but that excludes the JOs and
Yeah.
contract of service. It includes JOs and contract of service. These are
Job
some of the
orders.
people that we want to be
yeah, okay.
integrated in
So
the
you have 1.4. I do not know if you would want to take a serious look and abolish all those corresponding to the 200,000 which has not been filled. That's, I mean, immediately. Number two, you have enough reorganization powers under the GOCC Governance Act. And that bureaucracy in the GOCC is nothing to sneak, to disregard. I do not know if you have made a head count, Mr. Secretary, of the bureaucracy in the GOCC. It's a huge number. And looking at the organization at that level, you have already the appropriate authority today. And I would strongly suggest that if you are serious about right-sizing, you have a standing authority to do that. So, so maybe, Madam Chair, yes, you have asked me to help here. I will.
I need you to help because you know it from 1954. You've been doing it, right? Diba?
Hindi naman.
68. Iba yung 19.
Sige.
Okay.
One more
The
comment like
first-
that. Hindi na ako tutulong dito.
No, so maybe maybe I should also ask DBM so that I have a historical perspective from the first 1954 and of the mandate of each commission, and then the first commission that you did, the Villaferte Commission, okay, in Cory time. I
And si
understand
Ben
it,
Jokno was not part of that.
yes. Do I understand it to mean, Senator Drilon, that under the GOCC law that you enacted, the DBM has the right to look into right-sizing the GOCC's.
The commission.
The commission,
I'm an
yeah.
ex-officio
It's part
member.
You're ex-officio member
Kami
of
ni
that,
Sunny
yes.
Dominguez.
But there's no budgetary allocation because we do not provide a budget for
No.
GOCCs, right?
No.
They're self-sufficient.
But the...
Do we? Do we subsidize them?
So I think
There
some
are
are
there
budgetary
are some that
subsidy.
are subsidized, but many
But
GOCCs
most of them are not subsidized.
are not funded, but they have funds. They have funds. In fact,
So under
the
your
last
law-
year of the administration of President Pinoy, they remitted about 32 billion.
So
to the
under
national
your law,
government.
you delegated it to a governance
Yes,
commission of
yes,
which Secretary
yes.
Jokno is a member
Yes.
to right-size it. So it has
Yes.
not completed its process. It's just starting.
I do not know the status, but the
Yeah.
authority is there.
We have already decided on abolishing some corporations.
There were
So
agencies
good.
abolished.
So there is a precedent to this in the very near past, recent past, which is this governance commission. I'm not too familiar with that enacted law, the GCG. I see. So this is simply expanding it to the whole executive, but yeah. So it would be good also to review perhaps that law which delegates it to the governance commission and giving them the standards as well.
There are standards there that we set that, if present, will enable the GOCC Governing Council to reorganize, to retrench, to abolish GOCCs. It's a very powerful commission in terms of reorganizing the GOCC sector.
In fact, the information given me here is that the GCG has abolished 28 corporations and rationalized 22 corporations. Yeah.
Question of Senator Drilon on the 200,000 plantilla positions not filled up. I understand what Sec Ben said, that the budget is not released anyway to the government agency. But still, in our national budget, we include that, just that it's not released. What is the repercussion if you don't include that in the national budget, let's say, for those unfilled 5 years or more? Why do we always have to include it when it's not a necessary plantilla position, considering it's been there for 5 years?
I think we can actually make a decision on what to do. This is your committee, Your Honor, on what to do with the unfilled positions. We'll go through it one by one. Okay, maybe some are necessary, some are not, but
is there an
we'll make a
adverse
recommendation
implication on the performance of the agency on our budget? So immediately, it's very simple to imagine. You cut 200,000, which has not been filled all these years. As long as there's a benchmark, say 5-10 years hindi filled, hindi kailangan. Umandar naman tayo, tabuhay tayo, wala sila. At saka,
Easier said than done, Madam Chair. In the budget process,
okay.
if Secretary Jokno says, reduce this by whatever, 1 million, or 100 positions in that department.
Yes.
In the budget call, what the department head aawayin to si Secretary Jokno and say, kailangan namin yan, huwag mong i-abolish.
No, but he does not give it to them anyway, so they have nothing to lose.
Yeah, but they
he
can
says
use
that
it.
they keep it. No, I
Well,
don't
anyway,
understand.
sige,
That's
it's
what I want to
academic.
understand. You
Yeah.
said that they use it. How can they use something, the money of which stays with DBM?
No, they will now fill up the position. That's how they use it. So they fill up the position,
Yeah.
which has been vacant because Secretary Jokno is threatening to abolish this position. They will now say, Aba, I need this because I am going to launch this project.
Okay.
I need this, I need that. So Secretary Jokno, don't abolish this.
Question. In the meantime, in the past years, they have not filled it. Do they actually use that or save it and then divide it among themselves as bonuses?
No,
They cannot,
Your
because
Honor,
it's with you.
we do not release.
You don't release. So
And,
that's
and
not
sometimes, Your Honor, there are justifications why they are unfilled. There are no takers.
that's what they always say.
Salaries are
Since
low.
1998.
So if you're a
they've been saying
lawyer,
that.
you won't take lower
Yeah. We
lower
recognize
positions. So,
Senator Mig Subiri.
so we will go through the
You're one of the authors.
for 2018. We'll go through a thorough review of this
For a review,
unfilled position.
we recognize Senator Subiri. He's also one of the authors. I don't think it was in the slide. We can include him. It just said me and Senator Soto. I think Senator Onasan and Senator Subiri filed the version. It would be good if Senator Lon can be given a copy. He could enhance the bill based on his experience with the Governance Commission.
In that regard, I asked while you were out, I asked them to give us a paper on the items which I told them, how many, the experience in the past, reorganization commissions, reorganization laws. How many, enumerate all of this, what were the objectives, why did we fail to get this to reach these objectives, what are the goals, if we can do it, and what were the defects in those laws, which we can now correct in the proposed reorganization bill.
Yeah.
So yun lang. Total, nag-reorganize mo lang tayo. And my strong suggestion is that instead of Congress passing a law which will reorganize the whole bureaucracy, which it can never do, because lobbyists will come to our shores like you'll never know how many. Let it be delegated to the executive branch. You can have a Jokno commission.
That's actually the essence of the bill. The bill does not create a commission, including the legislators. It actually delegates the authority. In a way, it is similar to your Governance Commission bill.
And
Very similar, actually.
Let the executive decide, because politicians are very poor in reorganizing. I'm telling you, I repeat that statement. Politicians are very poor in reorganizing because by the very nature of our job, we do not want to displease. But in the reorganization, you have to displease. You have to be, to use the phrase of the president, you have to be a tulisan. You have to have a stout heart. And pag tayo ang nag-reorganize, well, kayo na lang, hindi ako kasama dyan. Kasi, so that is why we delegate it with the proper standards and let them do the actual reorganization. So I have my inputs. I hope that I earned my keep by coming here, Madam Chair.
You're welcome to stay.
Oh.
You also have to wrap up the hearing because he has a pitch meeting in the BSP. He's not to really look up this. Anyway,
So they just submit. They submit the
position paper of everyone present here today. So,
Chua, huh? You be in charge of what I asked for. Huh?
yeah. Do we have an estimate on the 200,000 plantilla not filled? Just an estimate amount? Because iba-ibang levels yan. So just an estimate on the monies not transmitted to the agencies, but if you were to transmit it, the 200,000 plantilla unfilled. Estimate.
$19 billion
19 billion.
for the unfilled positions.
Sec Ben, can you explain why do we always include it in the budget? All
Yeah,
these years?
because as explained by Senator Drilon, the secretary would insist that he needs the position, except that there are no takers.
So they want it there every year, just in case they find the taker.
Correct, correct.
Perhaps in the 2018 budget,
But only a certain percent.
this 19 billion can be excised from the budget. Yes.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. So let's start a right sizing with the budget of 2018.
Yes.
Based on the recommendation of Senator Dillon, which I think is very valid. No, depende sa need.
No, by that time, Your Honor, if you have this approved before you go on recess, medyo mahirap. But we can actually prepare this for the 2018 already.
You can achieve it through the budgetary process faster than the enactment of this into a law.
So first, we can look at the 200,000 plantilla and the 19 billion, which you can excise from the 2018 budget. Best efforts, I'll try to sponsor this before March 15. But we also have a supplementary budget, and we need to be enlightened, the historical perspective and all the questions of Senator Dillon. And second, we'd like to hear the agencies. Is there anyone in this room today, GSIS, Office of the President, etc., DAP, who is against this, or do you merely have enhancements of the measure? Yes, Attorney Monera.
Thank you for inviting the GSIS. On behalf of the GSIS, we only have enhancements. However, Your Honor, if it pleases the committee, may I cede the floor to our VP for Legal, who is here with us today, VP Lucio. You, June.
Good afternoon, Your Honors.
Good afternoon. Please proceed. State your name, please.
Attorney Lucio Yu Jr., VP for Legal. We fully support the bill, and so far as its purpose of right-sizing the bureaucracy and avoid overlapping of functions. However, for GSIS, we just want to comment on the provisions on benefits, especially Section 10. Actually, it's more on clarification. For example, in the Senate Bill 1162, it provides that all affected personnel can avail themselves of the various options of GSIS retirement laws, and actually it enumerated all retirement laws since the enactment of GSIS. However, we just want to be clarified whether it really means that because presently the existing retirement law is the latest one, Republic Act 8291. And although, for example, RA 1616, 660, and 1146, they are applicable only insofar as those government employees who enter the services when these laws are still in effect. So we took it to mean that if this will be enacted, those will be affected will still be able to avail of the benefits insofar as they are applicable. For example, if those who entered the government before 1977, they can avail of Republic Act 1616 and Republic Act 660. However, when they entered the services, for example, after 1997, then they should only have the option of availing of the latest law, which is 8291, which is actually what we are doing currently. So,
yeah, Madam Chair, just with the permission of Mr. Yu, I have to go because we have a Hawaiian delegation here visiting, both from the Chamber of Commerce as well. Aloha. But I'd like to give my full support on this measure. I'm in full support of Secretary Jokno's vision to make a leaner and meaner bureaucracy of government. So we are behind you in this as being the principal author 100%. Thank you, Secretary.
Thank you, Senator Sibiri. Madam Chairman, I think this concern, all the concerns here can be taken care of by the TWG. Okay.
yes.
You're correct. Can you kindly submit, as I said, hard and soft copy? May we ask DBM for the submissions requested by Senator Drilon, and we can convert this, what is a COMSEC? To a technical working group, right? Do we adjourn, or then you create a technical working group, or we can no, do I adjourn now? Saan si? What's Rachel? Adjourn ko na lang, then mag-TWG na? Sige. Sige. So we adjourned today's hearing. Is it 2 o'clock already? Oh, okay, you're late. Yeah, okay. I'm not feeling well also. We adjourned today's hearing. I will just see, depending on the output of a TWG, if I still need one hearing. Otherwise, the TWG, and we could include, well, we'll see, that COMSEC will call other agencies of government needed and review the output of the other commissions that were created by law before. And that's it. Thank you, Secretary Jokno. Yes. Earlier in private, I said that I hope to pass this by March 15, but based on what Senator Drilon said, baka hindi kaya. So I just say best effort to do it. Yeah, but the intention of the objective of the bill is laudable. We simply need to understand the workings of all. So maybe also ask you to look into the governance commission that he created, because it's a smaller sample of what we're doing with the whole executive. And then second, in the 2018 budget, the 200,000 plantilla, which of those are really either redundant or unnecessary, you can carve it out. Kung hindi na finifill, I don't think a secretary can say they need it. Why didn't you need it before? Then suddenly when we threaten we will not include it, now you need it now. Yes, 5 years is fine. Even 3 years and it's not used. But then there are agencies that need plantilla. So we can't just keep on adding. We will give those who need. And let's say, I'm just familiar with DOE, for example. The office of Undersecretary Ilagan, who needs plantilla positions for lawyers because they're doing a technical audit of electric cooperatives around the country. So he requested DBM for some plantilla positions. That's needed because it's a newly created USEC position as well, and it's needed by the electric power industry in the SPUG areas. Now, I don't know the 200,000. I've not reviewed it. I leave it to your better judgment, which to continue to fund but not release, and which to completely excise from the budget. Okay. Thank you, Sec Jokno and the whole DBM
thank
family.
you very much, Your Honor.
You are becoming my favorite department, not anymore DNR. Thank you to all the resource persons. And we just want to assure government executives and personnel that this is not a retrenchment scheme. So thank you. Bye-bye.